Thank you, Madam Chairman. With me are the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Mr. Wayne O. Robertson, our Director of Legal Reform, Ms. Nadine Wilkins, our Director of Human Rights, Captain Natalie James, our Technical Assistant to the Law Revision Commissioners, Ms. Julia Gowie-Williams, and our Accountant, Ms. Shaniel Warmington. Madam Chairman, as is set out in the budget book.
Hold a minute, Minister. Yes, Minister Warmington, somebody has your name. Somebody has your name. Warmington, the name called earlier. So allow the Minister to make the presentation. Please be a little more quiet. Go ahead, Minister.
Madam Speaker, as is set out in the book, the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs has the responsibility for the management of the government's legal and constitutional reform agenda. We have a all-of-government supervisory role in respect of the legislative program of each ministry. We provide technical guidance and support to the MDAs, and we also help to monitor their work program and implement strategies to close gaps identified. The aim of all of this is to accelerate the pace of legislative reform and the quality of legislation promulgated. Madam Chairman, the Ministry also has a responsibility for reforming the Constitution of Jamaica. And in this regard, we have taken the journey on the road to Republic. The tabling and passage of an ultimate bill to amend the Constitution to transition Jamaica from a constitutional monarchy to a republic is a major focus of our reform work at this time. And as you know, ultimately the bill will have to be approved by the people of Jamaica, which means that for the first time in independent Jamaica, we will have to hold a referendum. Madam Speaker, already this aspect of the work is being preceded by a bill to provide for new words of enactment to reflect the transition from the constitutional monarchy to the Republic of Jamaica. We have also established the Constitutional Reform Committee, and this March will be 1 year. We have implemented critical aspects of the Road to Republic public education program with over 70 stakeholder meetings, as well as 5 town hall meetings in the parishes of St. James, Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, Manchester, and Portland. However, the work of engaging the public and educating the public will have to be intensified, as there is a major knowledge gap in the population, and it has not helped that there was an absence of a curriculum in the schools for many years, which would provide information on the structure of government and all matters that would fall in civics. I'm grateful that civics is back on the curriculum, but I think that much remains to be done in this area. The Ministry will continue its effort to make the law reform process more efficient, thereby improving the quality of legislation and the speed at which they are promulgated. I know a major concern has to do with the capacity of the Office of the Parliamentary Counsel to deliver in a timely way. But as I have said repeatedly, that the passing of legislation takes place in various stages, and much of the work that needs to be done actually has to be done in the Ministry with portfolio responsibility for the subject matter. And the picture painted about deficiencies in the Office of the Parliamentary Counsel has not quite been an accurate picture, even though we readily accept that more resources are required to meet the volume of work across all of government. Madam Chairman, a cutting-edge legal information portal for the digitization of the laws of Jamaica will also be established. And the aim of this portal is to improve public access to the laws of Jamaica, educate the public about all aspects of legal information, and provide a facility for the public to express views on and query the status of any law. The portal will provide advanced search functionality and expanded availability of laws in various forms, with a particular focus on access to the Jamaica Gazette publications, as well as content giving notification of various seminal, judicial, and legislative developments. Funding for the project is being provided for under the Foundations for Competitiveness and Growth project through the World Bank. The contract, which is valued at just over US $197,000, was awarded to the European firm Softengi. The firm is ranked in the top 100 of the world's information technology outsourcing service providers by the International Association of Outsourcing Professionals. Work commenced on February 19 of this year and is expected to be completed by February 2025. The establishment of a project team is required to ensure seamless transition and implementation of the system. And the proposal in this regard is for the team to be comprised of 4 officers whose services would be contracted for 2 years. And the team would comprise a project manager, an ICT specialist, content production officer, records officer. The project cost is estimated at about $30 million, with 7.7 of that sum to be used to procure ITC equipment during the upcoming financial year. So, Madam Speaker, drafting, just before I get to the book, just to say that the ministry is to embark on significant initiative aimed at enhancing the quality and efficiency of the drafting process. And the central focus of the initiative will be the cultivation of a world-class drafting standards, ensuring that legislative texts are clear, concise, and legally sound. We have a legislative production management system in place, but it needs to be built out further. Now to go directly, Madam, to the budget. The ministry has been allocated approximately $1.37 billion for the 2024-25 financial year. And by way of summary, Madam Speaker, the main items supported under executive direction and management program, the approved budget is just under $740 million. The areas to be covered, direction and management division or corporate services division, planning, monitoring, and evaluation division. In respect of compensation of employees under the program, that is supported at a sum just under $164 million. Our corporate office has been established, but it needs to be retrofitted, and we have the sum of just over $272 million allocated, with the retrofitting work estimated at a cost of $210 million, the procurement of ICT infrastructure and equipment, just over $49 million, and for fixture, furniture, and fittings, just over $13 million. Madam Speaker, a major part of the work of the ministry will turn on public relations and awareness of the activities under the constitutional reform program, and that work is supported in the tune of $104 million to cover public awareness campaign, public education, and other public engagement activities. In respect of the corporate office and rental of property, the sum of $62.8 million has been approved, and another $136.12 million for operational activities. Under the constitutional and legislative reform head, the approved budget is just over $126 million. The main items supported: compensation of employees to the tune of $96.733 million, rental of property $7 million, workshop and seminar, which includes the Jamaican Bar Association professional legal development seminars. That is in the sum of $2.5 million. Subscription for law resources such as LexisNexis, ZipLaw, and VLaw, $1.1 million. Consultancy services for online publications of the laws of Jamaica, $8 million. Other operational expenses, just under $11 million. Madam Chairman, under the head of drafting of bills and subsidiary legislation, this relates to the Office of the Parliamentary Council. The approved budget is just under $192 million, and the main items supported are compensation of employees in the tune of $145 million, rental of property just over 12.618 million, consultancy services, and in this category, contracted legislative drafters is included, $11.54 million. For training of legislative drafters, $1.55 million, and operational expenses just under $20.5 million. Under the dissemination of legislative information, and this focuses on the Law Revision Secretariat, the approved budget is just over $34 million, with main items that are supported include compensation of employees, printing of statutes and subsidiary legislation, and other operational expenses. Madam Speaker, lastly, in respect of our legal education and development program, the approved budget is just over $276 million. And this primarily deals with the subvention support to the Norman Manley Law School.
Member Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could you indicate?
I'm not sure Member Brownberg mic is on. Turn it a little bit.
Not yet. Not yet.
Angle it a little bit. Angle it a little bit towards you. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Chairman. Could the Minister indicate the time frame for the tabling of legislation in relation to the removal of the now King as head of state, and the other time frame for potential referendum? That's the first question.
So the committee has concluded its deliberation in terms of the recommendations that would comprise the work for phase one of the reform, primarily focusing on the abolition of the constitutional monarchy. We're in the process of preparing the report that will go to Cabinet and then come to the Parliament. In tandem with that work, also the drafting instructions are being prepared. A subcommittee of the Constitutional Reform Committee has been established to deal with the preparation of the bill, assisting in all of the various steps involved, and we are hoping to schedule a meeting for Friday of this week. So the aim is to table the bill by the time the sectoral presentation comes around. As you know, under Section 49, there is a period of 3 months that must elapse between the tabling of the bill and the commencement of the debate on the whole bill. And then after the debate is concluded, another 3 months must elapse before the bill is passed. So the process is constitutionally slow. So you will have 6 months of dead time in the House alone. And I suspect a matter like this, numerous persons may wish to speak. So if the bill is tabled we're in March, April, around about May, then you'd have June, July, August before we can. The aim is to use that time to go into the nooks and crannies to inform and educate about the bill. We will have to do some cross-aisle discussion about what form that work will take because of the requirement for the bill to be approved by the people through the holding of the referendum. So I suspect that the bill would not be passed before later on in this year, and then it goes to the Senate. And as you know, between the time of its passage in the Senate, the Constitution prescribes a minimum and a maximum time for it to go to the electorate for an approval. So when the bill is tabled, the intention is to precede it with a ministerial statement to set out an indicative timetable, since we can't open the debate on the bill. But we are also preceding that with another amendment to Section 61 of the Constitution to modernize the words of enactment so that the constitutional reform, the actual bill, will have modern words and not what currently exists.
Thank you. I have two administrative questions. What's the staff complement of the ministry? I know the permanent secretary is there.
Right. So currently we're at 109, but not all posts on the establishment has been filled. Actually, it has been very difficult to find the experienced staff to fill the posts in the ministry. We have gone through different rounds of interview. Some have yielded candidates, some have not. So we have here the detail of the establishment as approved.
What percentage of, or how many of the 109 are currently filled now?
What's a percentage that remains?
The numbers. You said you have 109 on the complement, but how many you have filled?
About 30%.
30, okay.
Right. So in some case, for example, in the executive office, we have 5 on the establishment, 3 filled. The Human Rights Division, 5 on the establishment, only 1 has been filled so far. Legal Education, we have 4 of 5. In the Constitutional Reform Division, only 1 of 5. Other divisions have full complement, but we are in the process. Interviews were held last round in February, that's just 2 weeks ago, and another round is coming up.
All right, I asked within the context of, I see you have a nice new headquarters in my constituency. What does it cost to rent that facility?
Right, that's per month. Right, just about 4.5 million per month.
4.5 per month, that's about 30,000, all right.
So you would see what has been...
Have you occupied it yet, or is still in the process of...
No, we are there, even though it's not fully built out, because we have to be there. Very difficult to find corporate space all at once and to have the full complement in one place. So we still have some areas of the ministry in another location, but the corporate office is occupied, not built out yet.
Just for clarification, the bill that you'd bring to the Parliament, is it a simple majority within the House that would be required to pass that?
Yes, for that section 61, it is an ordinary provision of the Constitution that requires an absolute majority.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Member Hilton?
Thank you, Chair. Minister, as you've pointed out, and it's recognized that for quite some time the OPC has borne the brunt of criticisms about the pace of legislation. I'm aware that there are many parts to the process, but I think overall the question must be, given the importance of that process, as I took note that the whole legal reform really falls in the context of business, its impact on business reform and business efficiency. So what are we doing then to really come to grips? And my hope, when the new ministry was proposed, my hope, and still is, that it would bring to bear the kind of focus on this aspect of the work that I believe is needed if we're going to get to the root causes of the problem. Because at the end, the ministry will have to, I believe, will have to give advice to the policy process about the changes that are critically needed to overall the legislation, not just by way of updating, but also qualitatively, qualitatively address some of the issues that we have faced as working within the administration, the governance structure.
As I know you have more than passing knowledge of the legislative process, but for those who don't know, government is organized through ministries, departments, and agencies, and subject matters are assigned to the ministry with portfolio responsibility, and along with the subject matters are also the relevant legislation. And the policy in respect of those pieces of legislation falling under a ministry reside within the ministry, and legislation emanate from a policy decision. And so even though the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs has been given a supervisory role in respect of the legislative program for all of government, we still have to interface and rely on the line ministry, which has a responsibility for the subject matter and the legislation. What we have done is to establish, with the approval of Cabinet, ministry legislative teams in each ministry comprising of a policy officer or policy officers for the particular subject area, the legal officers, and we interface with them. We're in the process of restructuring the Legal Reform Department and the Office of the Parliamentary Counsel, and a submission has already been made to the Ministry of Finance. But it is really going to be dependent on a very coordinated work between the line ministry and the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, and also an understanding that you do not announce your intention to amend legislation or promulgate legislation too soon until most of the work is done. Because once an announcement is made, it creates an expectation that the legislation will come in short order. But if you have not gone through the steps that you must go through before the drafting of the bill is done, it will cause an expectation in the public and certainly a perception of delay.
Well, I appreciate the points that you made. My hope is that we can, because I think across government, there has to be this leveling up,
Absolutely.
if you will,
Absolutely.
of the knowledge, the understanding, the capacity, really.
So here is the good news, Member Hilton, although the ministry is assigned its portfolio responsibility, Cabinet did approve the establishment of the ministry team, which meant that there was buy-in all across the ministries in respect of this work. We have also seen a high turnover of staff in the line ministries and little continuity. So someone would be working on a project in respect of a particular bill, proposed bill, and that person leaves, and then it takes some time for a recruitment to take place, and then to pick up the bill, come back up to speed on it in order to move forward. And that has been a major problem.
No, let me be more specific.
Yeah.
In mind, for example, which is where I'm aware that training takes place for ministry staff and upgrading. Are you aware of any program to institute in mind that sort of capacity building across ministries when it comes to policy formulation, drafting instruction, and the collaborative work between the Ministry of Legal Affairs and line ministry?
So regularly and at the start of the legislative year, the Office of the Parliamentary Council runs seminars across government with the relevant persons right across the ministry. And that helps somewhat. But the capacity still has to be built out. Mayne's capacity for this, I don't believe is there yet. But given what Mayne is intended to do, it is something that will have to be looked at. And already the discussions have begun in that regard.
Yeah, okay. Minister, the technology and particularly AI have increasingly played a role in the reformation process and innovation. Do you see, well, not do you see, but to what extent you see a role for that, particularly given the exercise, the nature of the exercise, which is really part of which is to update the legislation across government, some of them spanning centuries old. How do we get on top of that body of work without the technological input?
Well, the simple answer is that all of us must incorporate technology. It is the age of technology, and already the ministry is on that road, and our new website will actually have an AI interface. More specifically, though, we have a legislative production management system, not specifically related to AI, no. It is in place, but the system is being built out by a consultant, or it needs to be built out, right. We're looking at that with expertise in SharePoint development and implementation. The departments, the ministries, the MDAs involved in the development of legislation would be linked to the system, and they would then be better able to view and track the status of proposed legislation. So we would be eliminating some of the back and forth. It's a shared point system. As a major part of the delay right now is where further clarification is sought between the Office of the Parliamentary Council and the Line Ministry on the policy intent, and for clarity in the instructions given, or where proposals seem to be inconsistent, or you may not have looked at another area of the law where there is a potential conflict with what is proposed, and that back and forth takes time. So the legislative production management system that is in place but has to be upgraded is targeting that work, and at the end the outcome would be improved user system interaction within the SharePoint. And in this budget we have an estimate, we have a sum allocated in the amount of $20 million for that.
Finally, Minister, see, there's a subvention here for the Norman Manley Law School.
Yes.
What is UTEC still pursuing a law program? And what my understanding is that there were some discrepancy between the funding for both, and where are we in that sort of discriminatory approach?
As you should know, that the Norman Manley Law School falls under a different regime than the University of Technology Faculty of Law. And the structure that is in place now really is premised on the obligations of the government of Jamaica under the treaty establishing the Council of Legal Education. The University of Technology's faculty falls under the Ministry of Education. So it is really the continuing legal framework and the obligation of the government in respect of the Council of Legal Education, which has the Norman Manley Law School. The matters relating to UTech are not so much in respect of the Faculty of Law, but what happens to the students having graduated with a law degree, which is supposed to be recognized, and their need to access the Norman Manley Law School to complete the bar training. Those are where the gray areas are. We have had different discussions around what is required. I have a personal view on the matter, which has been formed on my own research of what is required and the time I spent on the Council of Legal Education when I was in the role of Attorney General. There are issues there that will have to be resolved. But in respect of this budget, the amount that has been supported is the subvention to the Norman Manley Law School by virtue of the government's obligation under the treaty establishing the Council of Legal Education.
I guess my question is, are you seeing any effort towards resolving those issues?
It's work in progress. It's really work in progress. I know that, the proposals have been made to establish a law school that would deal exclusively with the graduates from the University of Technology. And when you drill down into that, there are other implications. So perhaps it's really expanding the capacity of the Norman Manley Law School and perhaps a satellite school out west, as the university itself has done satellite campuses or remote locations. I can't answer the question in this context because it will require going into information and time does not permit.
I'll speak to the Minister of Education. All right.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister, I know you are doing what you can do in terms of public education. And I recognize that in most of these town hall meetings, your main emphasis is placed on removing the king as the head of state. But with your ministry, and when it came into being, I thought it was a grand opportunity to let Jamaica understand, to know their rights, and to understand the laws that govern. I am not too certain if you are only zeroing now in regards to removing the king, or you're looking at the reform, the total reform of not just the legislation, but for people to understand the legislation that exists and that governs. Because I already speak about civics, and I know it has to do with education, Ministry of Education. But it really should be something that you push more than even the Ministry of Education. Why? Because, Minister, I am certain that 3/4 of Jamaica is listening to us right in here and don't understand one thing that is being said. And therefore, I believe the time has come for us to really simplify our messages, simplify our languages, take it piecemeal by piecemeal, so that
incrementally.
Well, right.
An incremental approach is a little different from piecemeal approach.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you. You see, the language means a lot. In respect, and I'm very serious about it, because this morning I was speaking to my helper, and she does not even understand what local government or central government do in respect to the laws that govern in this country. And it is very, very sad. I want to also find out, Minister, if you have anything in the budget that will speak to electronic education in terms of, and even social media, because that is where the younger generation is going. I don't see anything that is spelled out in this, in what you have here as your 24-25 budget. So I'm not certain if it is going to be something of a supplementary type, or it is something that you are looking at from now.
Thank you, Member Daly. So you have said a lot of things, and among them, what has jumped out at me is whether those who are viewing the proceedings of Parliament at this time understand what is taking place. And since our ministry has the subject matter of legal education, and our approach is intra-government education and public education, I would say to all who are watching that this budget process is actually a lawmaking process, because the budget, which sets out how much will be spent and how much is going to be earned in the financial year, has to be passed in a law called the Appropriation Act. And in the same way, when we are passing laws, you go into committee stage to discuss the clauses and the details of the law. What is happening now in the Standing Finance Committee is the committee stage of the lawmaking process. And each ministry, with its departments and agencies, the provisions really relate to somewhat a clause of the bill. So this process here is a lawmaking process. No money can be spent in any financial year without the sum being provided for in the Appropriations Act. That's the budget law. And sometimes we think that it's only the big yellow book that we deal with, but there is actually a bill, a bill entitled the Appropriations Act, which has to be passed, and which is passed at the end of this process, this committee stage process. But the Standing Finance Committee is a committee of the whole House. Once a budget is on, it has to go through clause by clause, using that by analogy, meaning each ministry with its departments and agencies, to approve the sums that have been appropriated or allocated to them. So that's one aspect. Even for parliamentarians, the budget process is complex, though I must say that it has been made simpler over time. I was remarking to my team that I recall when my attention was first turned to budget matters, there were times when the Standing Finance Committee would meet all night, with a little break to go on and on. But thankfully, over time, the process has been streamlined and made simpler, but it is still complex. So that's one thing. The other aspect about the legal education, we do have a legal education division of the ministry, and the work has commenced. We have actually gone into the schools, and we're going to roll out a new program in collaboration with the Ministry of Education for the schools. We have gone into numerous departments and agencies of the government of Jamaica, over 30 so far. And the goal is, first of all, to ensure that those who work in government understand the laws and operate in accordance with the law, and then the people themselves. And in respect of rights, you know, our human rights are guaranteed in a responsibility framework. If you look at Section 13 of the Constitution, we will have to build out that framework to ensure that all Jamaicans understand that the only way you will enjoy the rights that have been guaranteed is to be responsible, because they are not absolutely guaranteed. And they are guaranteed to the extent that your enjoyment of your rights does not prevent someone else from enjoying their rights. We do have an online program. It is being built out, and you will hear much more after the budget is passed. by virtue of the sums that have been supported for the items.
Member Guy.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Minister, your ministry is the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Reform. Since it has been established, your role primarily has been about constitutional reform.
Yes.
Your preamble in the description of head of estimates indicate that with respect to legislative reform, the MLCA will supervise the legislative program of each ministry, provide technical guidance and support to each ministry, monitor the work, etc., etc., etc. To what extent, and if you could, to give in terms of percentages, to what extent has the ministry in terms of the legislative reform so far, in terms of repeal, amending, or updating, modernizing some of these old legislation that exists on the book, to what extent have you been successful so far? Because from what I am hearing, most of the work of your ministry since it's established has been regarding constitutional reform.
And where were we coming from? Just a moment, member. So over the last year, we've done 3 years since the ministry? 3 years, 2015. Okay. And in terms of the revised laws, these are the revised laws? The revised laws. So where are we? I have done some data on consolidation to put them together. And then what other aspect of the work? That's just it? That's basically it. All right. All right. Member Guy, through you, Madam Chair, I just wanted to say, just before I answer your questions, in respect of Member Daly's aspect, the constitutional reform work is being done in phases. And the first phase, the focus is on the abolition of the constitutional monarchy as the form of government and the matters that would require the approval of the people to change. Those are the referendum matter. So it doesn't matter how big the work is, you really will have to do it in phases and stages, especially when it comes to law, because we have seen that even when new laws are passed, sometimes the orientation that is required is absent. And even when it is done, there is still a little bit of displacement, people not fully oriented into the new framework. So in order to manage it in a context where we have a knowledge deficit, we're taking it in stages. And I would have explained that through my various ministerial statements. With the update of the law, Member Guy, so we have begun with the establishment of the ministerial legislative teams, and I think we have in all ministries now, all. And we will continue our work of meeting with them, including at the ministerial level, at the PS level, and below. And so, as I had said to Member Hilton, that some people thought that the ministry was taking over all of the government work. But the government is organized in a way that the subject matters are assigned across ministries. So our role is a supervisory role. And in order to get that done, we have the teams that would interface between the line ministry and our own ministry. The work to consolidate the laws of Jamaica has been continuing, and since the ministry has been established, we have done 3 years, 2015, 2016, and 2017. So we're still a little behind. It was way behind for many years. So when an act of parliament is passed, amending an existing law, you usually see a clause which says that it is to be read and construed as one with the principal act. So an act of parliament is different from the laws of Jamaica. They have to be consolidated and put together with the principal act for the reading and construing as one to take place seamlessly. And that work has been ongoing, and we're now up to 2017 with that. So it's a lot that has been achieved given where we are coming from. we still have some way to go. And what we're trying to do is to keep the current ones as updated as possible and consolidated while we deal with the backlog.
When you hear the opposition saying heads, heads, heads.
They have heard enough? Yes.
Very, very convincing.
I didn't hear that.
They are very pleased. Head, head 27,000. Head 27,000, pages 1 through 6. Those in favor? No, hold on. 1 through 6. 27,000, 1 through 6. Those in favor? More fervor. Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to
team,
all. Yes.
From
And thanks
Legal
to the
and
team.
Constitutional Affairs.
Go on.
See how it's still. Yes, you're coming over here?
Yes, sir.
Watch it, sit down there. What do you say out there for me? You have something? You have something? Okay. Yeah, man.
Let us make welcome the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, covered on the heads 56,000, 56,000C and 56,039. Minister Daryl Vaz and Minister
Hutchinson.
State Minister, Minister Hutchinson, State Minister, along with their team, will present. Also, they will then move into heads 68,000, which covers 69,000, which covers Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, along with its capital budget and Post and Telecoms Department. Minister, you may go ahead, your team.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Post and Telecoms is no longer
69,000 is no
longer with
there.
MSET. It's now with the that's incorrect. It's OPM. Minister Dana Dixon. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Let me just start by thanking my permanent secretary and my team at the ministry
you will appreciate we will still, at the end of your deliberation, take the vote, because it wasn't done this morning. It wasn't included under the heads.
No problem. No, not a problem, Madam Chair.
If we don't vote on every single item of the budget, it is not approved. So it wasn't.
But your questions can be dealt with. In other words, what I'm saying, even if we don't do it here, I'll undertake to get whatever you need. And if I can answer based on historical information.
So apparently, Minister Dana Morris, Dixon, you had asked question on Post and Telecom. Member Paul had asked questions, and apparently Minister Dixon indicated she was in charge of the head, but it is not here as traditionally would have been under science and technology. If we do have additional questions, we could either have her return or we could document those questions for response in the House. And Minister, if you are able to, you could also, yes, just respond.
If you're not able to,
yes, to any question from Member Hilton in that respect. Thank you very much. Minister, you may go ahead.
Thank you very much. As I was saying, Madam Chair, I just wanted to start by saying thank you to my Minister of State, J.C. Hutchinson, and my Permanent Secretary, and the team at the Ministry, and, of course, the heads of agencies, chairman of boards, and directors of boards that fall under me. Once again, the 23-24 year was, for the ministry, was a very good year. Still a lot of work to be done, but thankfully I can say that the ministry did not make the news for the wrong reasons during that year, and that has been such since 2020, for which I stand proud as the minister responsible. Thank you. Against a popular sentiment. So, and thanks to my Permanent Secretary. So, Madam Chair, the programs for the new ministry, the Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications, MSET with an additional T for the fiscal year 24-25 will reflect a forward-thinking approach, emphasizing the connection between technological innovation, legal and policy strengthening, energy resilience, digital inclusivity, emergency responsiveness, and robust transport solutions. The MSET's head 69,000 has been afforded budgetary support of $27,873,661,000 for the financial year 24-25. Comprised as follows: the recurrent head, 69,000, 24.5 billion, including 732,109,000 appropriations in aid, and the capital head 6900C, 3.347,950,000 billion. For the recurrent head 69,000, there's an increase of 4.252,916,000, or 21% over 23-24 budget of 20.272 billion. However, the 2023-24 budget figure reflects 10 months of operations, as the new ministry was established on May 23rd, 2023. When the combined April to May 2023 budget of 3.2 billion for the former Ministry of Transport and Mining, head 68,000, and the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, head 56,000 is added to MSET's 23-24 budget, the real increase in total recurrent budgetary allocation amounts to about $1,051,000,000, or 4.5%. For the capital head 69,000C, the budgetary support of $3.3 billion is an increase of $2,258,151,000, or 207% over the 23-24 budget of $1,051,000,000. $1,089,799,000. In the context of this budget allocation, the major activities will include the acquisition of 100 compressed natural gas buses and the required works to complete the requirements of the PIAB PIMC for the completion of the project for the acquisition of a total of 300 new buses, which would mean 200 additional to the 100 that is currently on order. It should also be noted that the acquisition of the remaining 14 CNG buses of the initial 20 that were ordered will be delivered in the coming month. The procurement of a new landing instrument landing system with distance measuring equipment for the Norman Manley International Airport at a cost of approximately 1.3 million US, which recently received cabinet approval, and this was a Civil Aviation Authority submission. The acquisition of 100 megawatts of new renewable energy generation, procurement entity, and let me just get some specific dates here. Look for that from the PS. I think it's in here. That I know that my minister or shadow minister would want to know. I'm going to answer the question before he asks it. The old deadline for the bid submission, the first 100 megawatts, was February 2024. That has been extended to April 5th, 2024. The end of the evaluation period, obviously subject to staffing constraints, is for September 24 for the process to be completed. That's in this financial year, Member Paulwell. And the RFP for the second tranche is projected for November 2024. So both of them, one will conclude in 2024 and one will start in 2024. 168. The advancement of the rural electrification program, MSET will continue to focus on this program with a plan for full national access to electricity being accelerated over the next 5 years. And I want to say a special thank you to Minister Hutchinson, who has been overseeing this aspect and doing a fantastic job. The rural student transportation system, the ministry and the minister acknowledges the hardships faced by our citizens, especially the kids in rural parishes across the island, and is currently engaged in determining a mechanism to bring some relief to the cost of commute, with specific reference to students in the first instance, and the intention is to cause significant reduction in the cost of transportation in rural areas. The actual implementation is expected to be a private sector driven, and I look forward to working with Member Phillips on this initiative because I believe it will do wonders for those of us who represent rural constituencies. The advance in compliance audits, the civil aviation sector is expected to benefit from an audit of the International Civil Aviation Organization in April of this year. This is with a view of ensuring compliance with current international civil aviation standards and practices. Also, the maritime sector will be subject to also international scrutiny by the International Maritime Organization in May of this year. Madam Chair, I also want to pause to commend the National Road Safety Council for its resilience in our fight against collisions and crashes to reduce road fatalities. The ministry continues to give unwavering support to these efforts and is committed to ensuring that the necessary infrastructure is in place. I would also like to advise that the new road code will be published in short order. In addition, the ministry is acutely aware of the misery index relating to the provision of services by the JUTC, and while we embark on acquiring additional buses, the ministry is seeking to conduct critical assessment of the operations of the entity. In fact, formal overtures have already been made to the Auditor General. On a positive note, work on the national transport policy is advanced. So, Madam Chair, I'll now turn to providing an operational overview of the public bodies for 24-25. Petrojam Limited Refer to pages 252 through 256 of the Jamaica Public Body's estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year ending March 25th. Sales 24-25 are projected to be 14.14 million barrels when compared to 12.68 for 23-24. Operating expenses are projected to be 82.31 million, which is 2.08 million above the estimated final figure of 80.23 million US for 23-24. Major expenditure areas are compensation costs, utilities, maintenance and repairs, administration and interest. Planned capital expenditure for 24-25 is approximately 22.54 million US when compared with estimated figure of 16.5 for 23-24. The capital expenditure is primarily financed from internally generated resources. Spectrum Management Authority, pages 262 through 266. SMA will continue its efforts to modernize its equipment in line with the demands and changing environment. To this end, activities will include installing a new transportable monitoring site to provide support in areas where fixed sites are not able to resolve interference issues, upgrade remote monitoring, direction finding systems and security equipment sites in St. Mary and St. Thomas to improve technical and regulatory capabilities, upgrade the mobile monitoring mast to enable a wider coverage area for detecting modern signals and capturing higher range of spectrum bandwidth, implementing a detention notice kiosk which will determine if a particular radio frequency device is suitable to use in Jamaica, and lastly, conduct a FM band repackaging to improve frequency assignments, availability, and technical operations. Universal Service Fund, pages 270 through 276. The Universal Service Fund intends to continue focus on following key strategic objectives in the 24-25 financial year. Connect Jamaica program that will be adding 5 new locations to the existing 30 sites. Under this program, the USF connects Jamaicans through Wi-Fi cost-free. Transitioning from Community Access Program, CAP, to Community Wi-Fi. 63 new community Wi-Fi sites, 1 per constituency, will be added to the current 315. Continuous collaboration with the institutions, organizations to provide ICT literacy skills through the Technology Advancement Program, TAP. Under this program, 260 participants will receive training in computer coding. Since being launched in 2017, 1,500 unattached youths have been equipped with ICT skills. And finally, to continue to provide internet access, devices, and applications for training of students in the use of internet and other information and communication technology services. Airports Authority of Jamaica, pages 227 through 231. AAJ will maintain oversight of investments being undertaken at the 2 largest international airports with a view to ensuring the targeted improvements in infrastructure and service delivery are maintained. The Ian Fleming International Airport accommodated the inaugural American Airlines flight during 23-24 financial year. AAJ efforts will continue during the budget year to increase scheduled and other services at the airport. AAJ will further support the sustainable growth and development of the air transport sector and Jamaica's economy by continuing efforts to facilitate the establishment of a scholarship program to assist in training of 14 young Jamaicans during the year as pilots, aircraft mechanics, and airport operational personnel. The Aeronautical Telecommunications Limited, Aerotel, pages 222 to 26. The Aerotel will remain focused on providing critical technical support for aeronautical navigation services across Jamaica's airspace. They'll collaborate with the JCAA to improve the organizational model as well as exercise initiatives geared towards the modernization of air navigational services. Refine the safety management system in keeping with the regulatory requirements and limit major safety concerns, and enhance human resource capacity through planned training in accordance with the ICAO 10057 standards. Jamaica Railway Corporation, refer to pages 232 to 36. JRC's primary focus in the coming years position itself to revitalize and expand the rail service. I'm sure that when the questions are asked, I'll expand on that. Transport Authority, 267 to 271. The Transport Authority aims to remain committed to facilitating the safe and reliable movement of people, goods, and services through the issuance of licenses and impartial enforcement of laws that govern public passenger transport. I will just mention that just recently we reintroduced the Hackney carriage licenses applications, which has been tweaked to make sure that it is more equitable, and also that the chances of any manipulation have been lessened by the methodologies that have been implemented and signed off by the ministry. So, again, in the essence of time, I consulted with my two shadow spokespersons, Member Paulwell and Member Phillips, so that I could provide proper answers in the shortest possible time. So, unlike last year where I read out the questions, I'm going to allow them to ask me the questions, and I asked them to, you know that I didn't, you know, you're right. You're right. As a matter of fact, I've lost track. But now that you've reminded me, I know exactly who to concur with in recent. So, Member Paulwell, Member Phillips,
no, Member Phillips,
Member Robinson. Again, it's always good to work closely with you in the interest of the betterment of the people and the country. So, as again, I always have an open door policy and an open phone line policy.
Does that mean no questions, Minister?
Yes, just
Member Phillips look like he has one
just
question
to make sure that it doesn't look like it's contrived.
Member Phillips.
Thank you, Chairman.
Turn on your mic, please, and then member. Thank you.
Minister, let me start off with going to Airports Authority of Jamaica. On page 230 in your capital expenditures, the original budget for 23-24 for aerodromes was 1 billion, some 428 was estimated that after the fourth supplementary. But there's an additional amount of 823 million in the capital side of the budget for the Airports Authority where aerodromes are concerned. Can the Minister basically tell us what it is, the cost of maintaining these aerodromes, and what is it that this 823 million is for in this budget?
Thank you, Member. So the cost for the maintenance of the, are you speaking specifically to Ian Fleming or
no, just all the aerodromes in general.
Where's the one for the? Okay, so the total cost for the is 422,835,000 for the year of 23-24, and for 24-25 it goes up to 790, and those would include Ian Fleming, Tinsupen, Vernon Field not for 23-24 but for 24-25, Negril. As you know, we are doing work in terms of a master plan for Negril and the Lionel Densham, which also is on the cards for expansion. the 800 million additional. That's it, it's 700. 700? And that totals just under the 800 million that you mentioned.
That's the 800 million that is in the capital.
Yeah.
What's the, when you speak of the expansion plan of Negril, what does that include?
Well, what is being looked at now is the existing site of where the aerodrome is and whether or not it is suitable for extension of the runway and doing similar to what we have done at Ian Fleming, which is obviously to make it an international airport.
To make it an international airport.
Which would have insignificant impact, especially in that end of the island, based on...
For smaller aircrafts or for the same size?
Similar to Ian Fleming, this depending on what length runway we can get. The longer we get, obviously, is the better in terms of larger aircrafts.
All right. Where Ian Fleming is concerned, has all the works that were projected to be done, that's the terminal itself and all the other wet work, is that now completed?
That's now completed, yes. And the aim now is obviously to move from twice a week with American Airlines, and as soon as the passenger load increases, to get it.
Yes, congratulations, Minister. I mean, others before you, but you were able to receive the accolades.
Daily would be the best, but the most important thing is to try and attract other airlines to make sure that the facility is used to its maximum to reduce, obviously, the cost of carrying it.
All right. Where Norman Manley International Airport is concerned, Minister, there has been delays in the improvement work in some instances or the slow implementation in others. Can the Minister say what are the issues why PACAL has basically taken so long to do those improvements?
So the major issue was the renegotiation as a result of COVID, which has been concluded, and of course, obviously, that has been signed off on. So that is the real reason for the major delay. And of course, now that we have that done, we are moving full speed ahead in terms of what was agreed to be done based on the concession agreement. I think...
so was there an adjustment of the concession agreement?
Yes. So Cabinet in September, reduction of the concession fee payable to the AAJ from 62.01% to 52.33% of gross revenues. Commence implementation of the NMIA runway extension by 300 meters and the implementation of the runway end safety areas of 150 meters at the end of both runways. My understanding is that the extension should have started in March and has now been pushed back to September of this year. As a result,
should have started in March of this year.
March of this year, and the new revised date is September. And then, of course, continuing on PACA's capital expenditure program, the major components of these upgrades, the wastewater treatment plant, replacement of the chillers for the airport cooling system, overlay of the full runway, bathroom refurbishments and upgrades, which started in 2023 and will be completed in this year. And of course, most importantly, based on the government's thoughts in relation to Tinsapen, they are now looking at the possibility of whether or not they can incorporate the operations of Tinsapen at Norman Manley. But that, again, has to be done based on their assessment and studies, etc. So that also is a work in progress.
Okay. Let me move on to page 232, Jamaica Railway. Minister, I mean, the operating cost of the Jamaica Railway basically increased by about $60 million, but the revenue, especially train fares and charges, is it that the ministry will continue with the passenger service as is? Or is there going to be some relook at it?
That's an excellent question, member, and I must tell you that the last thing I did before coming to this sitting here was actually a meeting with the chairman and the board of Railway Corporation. Railway Corporation is currently cash-starved, and that's as a result of the school transport, railway transport service that's been offered to about 400 students in the Linstead, St. Catherine area. It's difficult because the fact is that it's a social service and it's an essential service. And what we are doing at the moment is trying to find a way how we can fund it until such time as Railway Corporation is able to expand on its revenue. One of the areas that they're working on and far advanced is taking advantage of the BPO traffic, especially in that area, because the BPOs employ thousands of people in one location, and transport is a problem. So that railway line runs right across a number of them, and it's a good revenue earner because of the amount of persons that will be moved to and from on a daily basis. If that happens, according to what they have presented to me, member, it can bring revenue between $30 and $40 million a month of guaranteed revenue. I mean, one check based on the fact that they have a contract with a blue chip company. So we are at the moment struggling, but the question is, do we pull the plug?
And the reason why I asked, Minister.
It's $10 million a month that is costing Railway Corporation to subsidize that service. But again, the reason why the service was put in place is for the safety and the security of the children, rather than going in the route taxes and the coasters. So it is a problem. I'm going to have to make a special request to the Ministry of Finance through the ministry in the short term until such time as other revenue earners come on street.
And don't get me wrong, I know, even including the JUTC is a public good.
Yeah.
But the responsibility is really to reduce the amount of hemorrhaging that each. We don't expect it to make a profit in itself. But when you see the losses moving up from 96 projected for 23-24 to 131 million, and the revenues really not moving up as much, then there is cause for concern.
There's one line item that's causing that. And of course, obviously, the Railway Corporation needs to get more trains and stock to be able to move and expand their business. And that again takes
capital.
Money. So
yes.
they are rich in assets. They have land all over the country, but that's not sufficient. So yes, the answer to your question is I agree with you totally, and it is something that is being addressed high on the agenda.
All right, so that we will hear further on that from you.
Yes.
Jamaica Ultimate Tire, page 237.
I want one liner for that. Ultimate Tire used to be competitive and had the biggest customer, which was their own JUTC. Fact of the matter is that the market has changed, and the persons that are supplying now are able to supply at much cheaper rates because of the fact that they're buying in huge quantities. So the fact is their largest client is no longer, and they are just basically
not able to compete.
So the fact is that is a question that will have to go to cabinet, but my own thoughts are that they have lived a good life and it's time to move on. Right, so my own recommendation, and in consultation with the PS, is that we should seek to get requests for proposals of persons who are in that business, who this would be a good addition, and because it's losing money.
It has been for a while.
The truth of the matter, there's no light at the end of the tunnel, because the fact is they are not competitive. That's simple. That's a simple, straightforward. It's not to do with anything other than not being able to compete in the market that you're in.
Minister, you spoke about the Transport Authority and your requests for hackney carriage license. What's the thought behind opening up the license regime again, seeing that you have over 6,000 in the KMTR so far? And I mean, as the regulator themselves have not been able to control the chaos on the streets within the KMTR.
I will share with you the proposal that came to us in relation to the rationale behind it, but there has been a revamping and there has been quite a bit of demand that has been built up over time of people requesting these.
Is that because of short of seats from the JUTC?
I would expect that would be part of it, but as I said before, it's not going to be this. It's not going to be the same old. There's a complete new overhaul in relation to the application process and the monitoring process of those licenses.
What's the difference between what now established and what is being proposed?
I think that there was a level of, what's the best word to use? Manipulation within the system in terms of one person having several different persons getting licenses under the same umbrella, and a few other things that the chairman and the board brought to my attention. But as I said, I will share with you the thought process and what the new format is in relation to the...
What's the required seats needed in the KMR?
Anybody have that? 31,000, I'm being told by...
Which is what's supposed to be provided by the JUTC. But so, overall, I would imagine it's more than that.
I'm being told it could be up to between 100 and 150,000.
150,000. And with seeing that we have now opened back the application, I mean, what is the shortfall of the seat requirement? Why opening up back the application?
I don't have that offhand, but I will get that information for you.
The reason why I ask on... reason why I ask on that, Minister, is because even after passing the Road Traffic Act and expecting to see more order within the system, it has escaped us. And to open up back, and I'm not saying that it's not needed, but then there's no true relook at the system itself before opening it up. It begs the question, are we really just trying to satisfy just putting out license there, or do we have an interest in bringing order to the transport sector, especially in the KMR, which runs different from the route taxes? Hackney carriages run completely different than the other players in the sector itself. So what is being done then to bring order to the system while you open up the licensing regime?
I don't think, remember, that anybody can argue the point that the PSTEM in conjunction with the Transport Authority and the Ministry have been consistently since definitely May last year trying to bring some order. It's not going to happen overnight, but when you look at the amount of tickets that have been issued, the amount of people that have been arrested for extortion, etc., etc., I want to commend the PSTEM and ACP Mackenzie and the Transport Authority under the chairmanship of Owen Ellington. There's no two ways about it. It's not going to happen overnight, but we're moving in the right direction. And as I said before, I think that once we get JUTC fleet back up to a certain level, that obviously that will assist as well in persons taking the JUTC.
The 16% out of the 35% that is due to the transport operators of the fare increase, which was promised to them come April, will that still be given to the operators?
Absolutely, absolutely. That was a commitment made, and of course you are already aware of what the Minister of Finance announced in relation to controlling inflation, and it's obviously we will continue to revisit as we go along.
No, so the answer is yes.
Yes, absolutely.
The operators will get the 16%.
That was a statement and a cabinet decision.
Same question was asked of the Minister of Finance, and his response was that he's not sure what the cabinet would do before this date.
I wasn't here to hear that, but I can tell you definitively that I made a statement coming out of cabinet, and I don't expect that to be reversed or contradicted.
You are the minister.
And seeing that the minister said that the information from the Bank of Jamaica were inflation numbers and the reduction.
Why are you speaking on behalf of Member Robinson? You are coming out.
No. Well, this has to do with JUTC. Will the proposed reduction in fares to the JUTC, is that still on for April also?
Once again, that was a statement made and a cabinet decision. So obviously, I would have to say yes.
All right. Just wanted to get your word on those.
You wanted to put me on record.
I would like to hear myself too.
And put me in problem.
The 100 new buses.
The what?
The 100 new buses that you propose to purchase. When is the expected delivery date?
So the deposit is paid, and the earliest shipping time that I have as of right now is June to get here July, possibly end of June to get here end of July. But my intention is to have those buses rolled out for the new school term, which will make a huge impact in relation to the misery index. And I can confirm, as I said before, that I have given a directive that 10% of all buses ordered must be a component for the disabled community. So it will be 90 regular buses and 10 buses outfitted for the disabled. Absolutely. And as you said, as you are aware as well, or you may not be aware, we are in the process of trying to recondition some of the buses that run the routes that go up into the hills, the Temple Hall and the Garden Town and Mavis Bank or wherever it is, because those are heavily trafficked and need to be properly serviced. So we have a plan in terms of new buses, introducing new buses, and recondition. So is 100 reconditioned buses?
Well, Minister,
no, 25 is a dragon. Overall is 100 and... Where's Paul? Gone? What's the total amount of recondition overall? 110?
Approximately 70 and 25,
95, sorry, my maths is not so good. So, 70 and 25. And those would be...
But will you get the resources to refurbish those buses?
Yes.
Much less to maintain. And the reason why I ask, Minister, is that every year that a budget is presented, you generally request about $3 billion for repair. And you generally get no more than about 1.5 billion, 1.6. So it's half of what you ask for. Now, if you were maintaining just your regular fleet with that budget, and then you want to fix up 95 plus to maintain what you already have, how are you going to manage with?
So let me tell you that we have already identified funds for 25 of the 95 buses in this financial year.
Which is the $3 billion that you're looking at here?
Which is what?
Which is the $3 billion that you have requested?
No, it's about 3 million. It's about 3 million per bus. No, 10 million. Sorry, $10.5 million is the cost of the cost and I'm talking about the 25 that is in the 23-24, not
23-24.
So we will make provisions for maybe not all of them at once, but definitely. So once you do that, member, you have to understand that the fact that you are putting 25 reconditioned buses and the recondition is not local recondition. These are the manufacturer that come to Jamaica and oversee the reconditioning of the buses. So right away you get significant more life of it with minimum parts requirements, because basically refurbished or reconditioned is pretty much just a used bus as against a new bus being redone. So it's not easy, but the fact of the matter is that we are making progress in terms of getting the fleet, a reliable fleet, back up to the optimum of at least 300 per day rollout, coming from 180 to 200 now. Buses that don't always go out and stay out.
How is the performance of the 5 electric buses that is it 5?
5.
5 electric buses that
It's 5 and 1? 6. There's a test one.
The
So it's
test
5
one,
that
yes.
came in and a
Yeah.
test one. What's the report done on any of them yet? Yes.
Operation expense and revenue?
No, he just wants to know how they're doing.
They're performing well.
So far, member, so good. I can share with you some of the operational expenses in terms of the cost of the electricity and all the various things.
Yes, it would be interesting to know. I mean, just for the future, if it is that we're going to go that route.
I will share that with you in due course, between now and when we finish.
All right.
I won't detain you for that.
The only other thing on page 243, the salaries, staff costs, was budgeted at 5 billion, came in at 3.8 billion. That's for 23-24, but it's being increased to by call it what 1.3 billion dollars.
Sorry, that's for where?
That's JUTC.
JUTC as an entity.
Yes.
Say again.
The salaries, an increase from 3.8 billion to 5 billion. Wouldn't the restructuring of the salaries would have been done in this financial year, that it would increase by over $1 billion?
So, yes, member, you are correct. The salary and wages were based on the new compensation package by the Ministry of Finance and Public Service, which now includes motor vehicle upkeep and commuted allowance. So there's a 23% or $1.7 billion.
Okay.
So despite all that is said about the reclassification, this is one area that it has benefited significantly, entity of the government. $1.7 billion, and that's about one entity
And
based
you,
on reclassification.
in closing, you said that you have
You're not answering.
you have looked at.
You're not commenting on that one. You're not commenting on that.
I thought you were
last
making just a
comment I made.
statement. Eh?
Eh? Okay. So it's important.
Yeah. Everything is important.
You're taking
the
up
12
member
billion
Paul's time now, and member
the 12
Robinson.
$12 billion loss, and you had alluded that you're asking for a review of the operations
Yes,
of the
it's
JUTC.
time. It's absolute
It is overdue.
100%.
Right, because I think the staff itself has been given basket to carry water to carry the JUTC.
And I can tell you that I do believe it is timely, and I think that it will.
And will the same be done for Montego Bay Metro?
Yes, Montego Bay Metro, members, you know, is another situation where they are limping. And the bottom line is, again, a decision has to be taken in relation to whether we put more buses on the road down there, or we do the same thing and see if there's somebody in the transport sector that would give a better service to a growing to a growing area of the country, especially with, obviously, construction and tourism and all that's going with it. But whatever happens, that also will require a complete revamp and rethought in terms of the operations of Montego Bay Metro.
And I look forward to seeing that review.
Thank you, sir.
Minister Warmington. Member Paulwell.
Chairman, I just want to be clear. I deal with the portfolios, energy and ICTs. So if if the member from Southwest St. Catherine is asking on transport, then perhaps we could allow him. But yes, and I'll certainly yield. But I do want to preserve my right as a spokesman on the other two areas to be the first.
Petrojam. Energy. Kadian.
Minister, is there any method or as such within your ministry or scope where you can make allocation to councillors?
Not to my knowledge, member.
Is there such a privilege or opportunity in any other ministry? Do you know if any other ministry can do that?
Not that I know of.
But then, if that's the case, so you're making statement. You made a statement the other day where I'm concerned that you disassociate yourself from the statement I made in a location. If it is not within a minister's to do it, power, then why are you making such statement in the Observer? I said to a general question. He said, what's a general question? He's making that be associated with allocation from ministry councillor.
Member.
Yeah, you know that it's not possible. Then why are you making such statement?
Chairman, let me make it clear for all who have ears to hear and eyes to see. I do not support partisan politics at any level, whether it's a council level, MP level, or government level. And as a minister of government, that will never happen under my watch in any way, shape, or form. That is beyond my pay grade.
Member Will, hello.
That's beyond my pay grade.
Minister, the mic is not on for the member, and so you don't have to respond to it. Let's concentrate on the spokesperson on the opposition side. Member Paulwell, you have the floor.
Yes.
Doesn't seem like you have learned anything.
Chairman, yes, I now claim my position to, first of all, just make some general points and to ask some specific questions of the minister. As you know, I normally take both books together, especially the public bodies book, because it contains many of the areas under both the ICTs and energy. Minister, in relation to ICTs, if I can start there.
Remember that there has been a change, you know. With telecommunications.
You're no longer responsible for telecommunications?
ICT.
Yes. No, but are you responsible for telecommunications?
Telecommunications.
Yeah, man. But you know that we have embraced telecommunications under ICT.
I'm just pointing it out to you.
Earlier today, I had asked the Minister of Finance because he had projected some additional revenues. In fact, the doubling of the revenues for telecoms licenses. And I recall last year that you had announced a new licensee, and we were all happy to see additional competition in the space, but to date we haven't seen the new operator coming online. Perhaps you can give us an update on that. And in relation to the question I asked the minister this morning, who asked me to ask you, where will we get the additional revenues from for telecoms licenses?
So thank you. Yeah. 18?
Page 18.
So, member, thank you for that. So, as it relates to revenues from spectrum licenses, $1.2 billion is projected, and that's based inflows from license and regulatory fees from existing licenses as well as processing fees. These figures do not include any projection for new licenses. It is expected that the third domestic mobile spectrum license will remit its first payment for the spectrum license and regulatory fees in June of this year, and that's approximately $120 million that is expected as a license fees. The subject area covered by the Telecommunications Ministry based on the change that took place recently, management of telecommunications sector to include the issues of license to telecommunication providers, carrier, service provider, and spectrum, management of the spectrum resources, management of universal service obligations, and tablet in schools and school connectivity program.
And I'm fine with that. I just want to understand that new licensee.
Yes.
I take it's a cellular phone operator for which a license was granted last year. When do we expect to have that additional competitor in the market space?
Yes.
Yes.
Their obligations start from June of this year based on the conditions of the license. And you'll recall that they did seek and get extensions of the two, to be exact. And that was obviously because of the COVID and obviously other challenges that they have. But the fact is that the last extension would put them to have to start performing by June of this year.
You mean 3-4 months from now?
June 2024.
But I haven't seen one tower being established. That is really an impossibility.
So, Minister, remember that the license starts counting as of June this year, so they have a 12-month period to the start up. So by this time, June, they start.
Okay, I have a very good explanation for that. Yeah. So the conditions start in June based on extension, and they would have 12 months. So it would be June of 2025 before they would be obligated to start providing a rollout.
Yes. Minister, I have some passing knowledge of how these things are established and the timeline that it will take. I think you have to be realistic. If they haven't started to do the build-out, it is going to take them a much longer time. And I suspect, as we did, there's a requirement for coverage of at least 90% or so of the country. So I don't see that as happening.
So,
but the coverage rate, is progressive. You don't achieve it.
Sure. So, a good point. The coverage is progressive. Obviously, they wouldn't be required to roll out 90% from the start. However, I don't want to go into their business plan because I don't know whether they are using existing towers. I don't know the details of what their rollout plan is. What I do know is that they have invested significant amount of capex and are gung-ho to get to the point of where they can start to recover some of that. I can't get into their business plan.
Minister, I had asked you in my questions to deal with the issue of over-the-top providers who I heard you recently in defending Digicel. You've expressed your concerns about those operators, and I myself am concerned about not the future of Digicel, because I know that Digicel will be able to find its way. I really would love for the headquarters to remain in Jamaica, and I hope you share that view. But are there any new thinking in relation to how we treat with the viability of players in the industry?
So, remember, I would have gone to the CTU meeting in Barbados just a few months ago, and I can tell you that Jamaica was one of the strident voices in relation to the concern. And understandably, the telecommunication network operators have concerns regarding how over-the-top services are being treated, not just here in Jamaica, but regionally, and indeed globally. For Jamaica, we recognize the important role that OTTs play in the communications and content landscape, but equally the impact that their presence have on the terrestrial networks. Jamaica, as part of this Caribbean Telecommunications Union, is participating in a process to facilitate a regional approach to the issue. As I said, following meetings of the CTU last year, the intent is to place the issue before CARICOM heads of government so that the approach to roaming rates, we can achieve a collective response. As members can appreciate, we must balance innovation with the requirement and cost of network expansion. So you and I are on the same page in relation to the concerns, and we are following a path where we are using CARICOM at the heads of CARICOM level rather than continuing to just kick the can down the road, which is taking us nowhere.
And you'll use all your influence to maintain Digicel headquarters in Jamaica.
That was a no-brainer, member. Based on the condition of the license, we were constrained, but we have made it very, very clear to them, both at the ministerial level and the cabinet level, that obviously would be our intention.
That's
on top of which, obviously, they have certain reliefs that they got, which would be foolhardy to give up at a point like this when they were just renewed.
Minister, you have reduced your ambition in relation to the objectives this year for the Universal Service Fund. You have indicated one additional site, free Wi-Fi facility for members of for constituencies.
From how much?
Pardon?
From how much? From three?
Well,
from three?
Some of us got three, and you know, I should have started firstly by commending the ministry and the permanent secretary, the team for the stability.
You see why I can't help you? Because I help you, and you see, you loaded me up in front of all of the other.
No, it's not you. 61? It's not you. No, the commendation to the team and to the staff of Universal Service Fund for the work that they have been doing.
Agreed.
For the work that they have been doing across Jamaica.
Agreed.
Right?
100% agreed.
But Minister, I have to take note of the budgetary position of Universal Service Fund. They had a deficit of $392 million for the past year and a projected deficit of $2.3 billion for this year. Minister, we have to do something about the survival of the Universal Service Fund. It is too important an institution for us not to provide enough resources for them to do the work. And I am making again another special appeal that we don't allow them to operate in a deficit environment any longer, but for the Ministry of Finance to step in. You will recall when they were established first, all the funds that we collected over the first 3 or so years, almost $10 billion went straight into the consolidated fund. I'm asking that some of these monies be returned to USF. At the same time, we make sure that their future funding is secure.
So let me just assure you, member, that that's exactly what's being done. The funds that are at the accountant general are accessible, and basically we have been drawing from it every year, and we still have a significant amount. It's 13 billion.
How much?
13 billion. 13 billion 622.
13 billion.
13 billion. And those funds are, that's what we are at now. and of course, obviously, the National Broadband Initiative and e-learning tablets in school, in addition to supporting the USF's budget deficit created by the fall in revenue. So approximately $2 billion annually is being spent from USF funds held by the Accountant General for these initiatives. At the end of 23, 24, and 24-25, the balance held at the Accountant General will reduce from 13.6 billion to 10.9 billion.
It just appears that the USF is limping. I know that their
but how
ambition...
can you say they're limping if you just said that they're doing such a great job?
Well, limping in relation to this new financial year is only one free Wi-Fi facility is being allocated. Again, on record, let us make their viability far more certain than it has been so far. I'd like to turn, Minister, if you'll agree with that.
Let me just say in closing on that, that I have always been I got the responsibility, first in 2008 or 9 or 10, whenever it was, that the development of a system to ensure accuracy of levy collections, research on USFs in other jurisdictions is being conducted and measures identified to validate levy collections. There is no way that the government or any government can be collecting on the basis of those who are collecting using their records to give you the funds that are owed to you without any way of any checks and balances. It is ludicrous, especially in this day and age of technology. I'm just at a loss to know. I could understand back in 2009 or 10, Member Robinson, but I just can't understand how there cannot be something that is used independently that both parties can have to verify the figures and the accuracy of the figures.
Well, the way this commenced in 2005 was for the OUR to determine, based on voice traffic, the respective amounts that should have been forthcoming from the providers. We are aware that voice is no longer generating revenues. So you have to find a way without overburdening the consumer on the data side to provide resources for USF. It is to enable all Jamaicans to have access to the technology, and so therefore
we're on one page with that.
All right, so I'm expecting that in your budget presentation, we'll hear something specific on how we're going to make USF far more viable and not to see it here as a losing enterprise, because it is really cash rich when you think of all the monies that have been collected to date.
I am totally on the same page, sir. Totally.
Minister, in relation to energy, does the ministry have a notion, has a price point of the cost of electricity to the Jamaican consumer that you want to see happen at a certain point in time? Because you have indicated certain activities, but I want to know what is guiding that. And I can tell you up front, we had projected 15 US cents per kilowatt hour.
15?
515. And it was at the time 42 cents. And we brought it down to 23 cents, but it has gone back up. Is there a notion as to where Jamaica wants electricity prices to be? And how we're going to get there?
So I wouldn't want to commit to a number, member, but
it's
obviously
risky.
We want to get it lower. And of course, obviously, we are putting in place all that we can in terms of the IRP and of course the renewables, etc. But with the vulnerability in the energy sector, I would say to you that 15 cents would be a reasonable approximation in terms of getting it down to within that kind of range.
Well, I think this is one area where both government and opposition should be at one. Where do we want to see the price of electricity and see if we can work to get there? There are some missing links, Minister. I have indicated to you that I am very concerned about the situation with LNG. I am not begrudging anybody's profits. And this week we heard the tremendous profits that have flowed to New Fortress, and God bless them. But our expectation with the dramatic transformation in our energy mix to now incorporating 60% LNG, we are not seeing the price reduction that we were expecting. And again, I have to ask you, in relation to competition, where are we with the regulations? Because once we have those regulations in place and there is certainty, you would have people who want to jump into a market like Jamaica if they're seeing people making a lot of money. So where are we with those regulations for promulgation?
So, member, in 2018, Cabinet gave approval for the drafting instructions for the Petroleum Downstream Activities Act and regulations. In February 2021, the Cabinet ratified the previous decisions related to the Petroleum Downstream Act, which includes all natural gas and petroleum activities. The current draft Petroleum Downstream Activities Bill includes permits and licenses for different aspects of the natural gas and petroleum downstream activities, such as construction of LNG import and export facilities, CNG facilities, and infrastructure related to storage, transportation, and distribution of natural gas, LNG, and CNG. The current bill includes the recommendations from the then Draft Gas Act and regulations prepared by the consultants A.F. Mercados EMI in 2014. I would suspect that was under your watch. And the third draft of the Petroleum Downstream Activities was circulated in mid-23 to the Jamaica Energy Council Natural Gas Subcommittee, and comments were received from key stakeholders. The ministry is currently in receipt of the fourth draft of the bill, and it is being reviewed to ensure that all the pertinent cabinet decisions and stakeholder comments are incorporated. The regulations will be done with the work to give effect to the final position of Parliament to the Electricity Act, which, as you know, is already completed the draft report and deliberations of the Special Joint Select Committee.
No, I wouldn't want it to go there as yet. No, I'm trying to focus on LNG. And you have mentioned that there is now a fourth draft of those regulations which were drafted from 2015.
The downstream bill.
Yeah, but why are we not focusing on LNG? It is already a feature of our energy mix. It is a shortcoming in us not having a regulatory framework to govern its operations. It is not subject to competition. And that's one of the reasons why I believe super profits are being made. And again, I don't begrudge people making profits, but is we paying?
So let me answer you very clearly that it is long in coming, but since you first raised it and we discussed it at the Joint Select Committee, we have, as you know, found a cabinet decision that was somewhere that wasn't within my ministry, and we are moving to do a holistic approach with the downstream bill, and I can assure you that it has the highest attention of the ministry. Can you give me a time?
Minister.
It's at the OPC. It's at the OPC member, and I did speak to the OPC and was given a guarantee that it would be treated as priority, and I would not be surprised if I get it back in the month of March.
Okay. All right. In the sectoral debate, we're going to come back to LNG because I really believe that some of the assumptions, for example, Jamaica being a hub and the savings from that being transferred back to the consumers, not being realized. But I want to turn to Petrojam. And again, Petrojam deserves commendations. There has been very positive stuff out of Petrojam over the last few years, and we want to welcome your new leadership in Petrojam. But Minister, I have indicated to you already that I believe that we are giving Petrojam basket to carry water. Because 4 years ago, there was a report that was done by the ZACA committee, and to date, this Parliament hasn't been able to debate that report, and there were some recommendations that I don't support, and I know by way of this budget, you don't support, because you're providing in this now an allocation of over $3 billion for capital works at Petrojam, whilst the Zaka report is telling you to shut down the refinery operations. And so it doesn't make sense. Have you taken a decision on the Zaka report to discard it? Or are you still in the process of contemplation?
I wouldn't say the way you said it. What I would say is that I did take it to Cabinet some time ago. And Cabinet gave certain directives, which was basically to undertake a public perception study. And this was undertaken by Capri. Following from this, a public awareness program was undertaken by Petrojam. And most importantly, in terms of getting people to understand how the pricing was done, because that was a big gray area, both in the private sector and the public domain. And then, of course, a sensitization session, as I said, on the pricing mechanism. I have carried out the instructions of the Cabinet, and the report was tabled here in Parliament. So I will go back to Cabinet based on these discussions here, but I would say to you that obviously the fact that nothing has happened to this point, that it doesn't seem to be a priority of Cabinet.
I would just say, Minister, that it is unfair to Petrojam. The staff has been in this state of flux for 20 years, under my watch, and now more so under yours. We were trying to get an upgrade project going. Didn't happen. But for the Petrojam board and staff to continue in limping, $3.3 billion is limping. You're using tape to allow the refinery to continue when what you need is a fundamental decision about the future of the company, because Petrojam can become far more profitable. Petrojam lost money last year, $600 million. It can become profitable. I'm seeing in the book that there's a loss of 600 million Jamaican dollars. I don't know if you want to explain that loss, but it can become far more profitable if a decision is taken as to its future and the necessary capital expenditure be put in place so that you can export more of the products, asphalt and heavy fuel oil, and so on.
So member, I would just encourage you to relook at the numbers based on information that I'm getting here.
Yeah.
We are at a difference. What I can say
I'm
to
at
you,
252, page 252. It says here 2023, 2024, 3.9 million net loss. And we're not at the end of the financial year. Page 252.
Okay. You have clarified it. You have clarified it. What I would say to your member is that Petrojam is not just sitting still. There have been several proposals that have been put to Petrojam in terms of possible collaboration, private-public partnership, etc. And all of them have been and are being looked at. So while the Zaka report, the Cabinet has not given a final direction on it, we are continuing to make sure to look at the best ways to improve the efficiency and the profits of Petrojam.
It's unfair to Petrojam.
Member Robinson.
Thank you, Chairman. I have three sets of questions. The government had two energy programs. I'm just going to make sure I use the right names. The Energy Efficiency and Conservation Program and the Energy Management and Efficiency Project. Both of those were geared at reducing the energy consumption within the public sector. I wanted to get an update on them in terms of, I know we were retrofitting public institutions, and whether you can say the level of savings that have been derived based on the monies that have been invested.
So, remember, just to be clear, the Energy Management and Efficiency Program?
Well, I want There are two of them. I think they were funded, certainly when we were there, by the IDB, and one may have been by the World Bank. Let me tell you what they were geared to do. We went into public institutions. We would, the roofing, we would put a layer on the roofing. We did the tinting of the buildings. We changed out the ACs. That's the program I'm speaking of. If I have the wrong nomenclature, don't hold me to the nomenclature, but that's the program I'm asking about.
Okay, I'm being told that since 2020 when I came, that has not been. It's from 2017? From 2017, that was concluded.
It was concluded?
Yeah.
Okay, so that, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
The Energy Management and Efficiency Program, I have an update on that.
All right, well, give me an update on that.
So under the Energy Management and Efficiency Program, EMEP, the ministry is working toward maximizing the EPA facilities. MSET is steadfast in its commitment to enhancing energy efficiency and conservation across Jamaica. In June 23, we successfully finalized the energy efficiency and conservation policy and guidelines tailored for existing and new public buildings, a milestone now accessible on MSET's official website. Progressively, we are expanding these efforts through the development of a broader energy efficiency and conservation supporting policy as a crucial component under the draft National Energy Policy 24 to 50, as we continue to lay the groundwork for a sustainable and energy efficient future for our nation. You may also recall that a ban on incandescent bulbs is now in effect, and I can also indicate to you, member, that we are far advanced with USAID with our roof solar program that they had done in Puerto Rico, which we were made aware of, and we are, where are we in terms of the solar? Final draft of the report is now being concluded and to be presented back to us.
That's a roof solar program for public sector buildings or more broadly?
The study was done across, both public and private. 7 hospitals, 16 public facilities for retrofitting is under the current program now. So it has.
You have any stats on what we have saved in terms of consumption since you have implemented it?
Don't have it offhand, but I can get that for you.
Okay. All right. Second set of questions relate to, we had ambitious goals of a particular percentage of renewables as part of our energy mix. Is 50% by 2030? With the, it seems a stretch now, even with the 2 RFPs, because you probably will make a decision in November, and then you have to add probably 24 months for build-out, and then you have another 168 coming. What is your projection?
And JPS, don't forget JPS, with the 171.
So the 100 plus the 168 are private providers, but JPS is replacement of existing capacity.
That's correct.
For one, how much? 171 megs?
171.
What would that, if you take those 3 projects, what would that get us to in the next, let's say, 3 to 4 years, which is probably when you would be able to implement those?
I'm being told over 30%.
You'll get to over 30%?
Where are we now? 20? Huh? Just under 30.
Just under 30 with all 3 when they're implemented.
Currently, and that would take us to just under 30.
What is the time frame for the JPS replacement of their capacity?
We have given them all that they need. We have given them all the necessary approvals. So they're actually in process procurement.
What is it that is it wind, solar, what is it that they plan to do?
So battery, solar, and wind.
Okay. All right.
Bear in mind that the original was like for like. So we had to make changes based on policy to give them the ability to use renewables and still get the 171.
All right.
They would not have achieved the 171.
Since you raised the battery solar issue, I didn't plan to ask it, but there was the issue of the CET based on this Barbados manufacturer, and that has imposed really an additional burden on people who are importing solar batteries into the country. What is the approach that the government has taken to deal with that particular issue?
Through the lobbying of the ministry, MSET, through to Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, we have gotten 1 year, and we'll be applying for additional 2. Yes. Additional 2 prior to November, is it cut off?
Yeah, but we're aiming for May.
But we are aiming for May. I'm not waiting until November. So we will apply for the 2-year extension by May.
By May this year.
So May this year, which means we'll get 1 and 2. And again, we have raised serious concerns with the process, and we have flagged it to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Industry.
So as we stand now, people can continue to import without that tax being imposed?
February 1? Since February.
Since
and again,
February.
I want to commend the team at the ministry and, of course, the team at MIIC and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because it was a very untidy situation.
Yeah.
It's counter. Yeah, well, we are just the ministry. We don't actually go. But the bottom line is that it was totally, let me use a diplomatic word.
It just needs to be challenged. It has to be challenged.
My colleague here, who has great experience in that field, says it was irregular.
Yeah.
But quote him, don't quote me.
Understood. My final question,
100%.
I see Mr. Morgan from Petrojam. You had a cyber incident either late last year or early this year. Can you confirm whether all your systems are back up and running, and whether you are still using manual systems as a result of that?
We are 95? So 95% restoration. We never lost any continuity of the operations. And based on the investigations, as I said, they are 95% in terms of putting in place. And resilience measures implemented during the period. So
okay.
No interruption, which is the most important part.
I understand that. I just heard, well, that you were using a lot of manual backups, even up to recently, and some of the online things were taking a long time to get back on stream. That's correct. Okay.
Member Hilton.
Member Guy first.
Thank you very much,
Member
Chairman.
Hilton was sleeping.
Minister, the Universal Service Fund.
Yes.
First of all, I want to commend, as others have done, with the expansion across the country, moving from community access points to community Wi-Fi. But just one concern I have, and I'm going to ask you how it is dealt with, if there is. Most of the systems rely on the provision of the existing providers in this country to give internet access. What measures are in place to ensure that the capacity of the system that was installed originally is maintained and kept up to the speed? Speed meaning the upload and download speed that are usually anticipated. Because I asked this question to get a background that I visited one recently, and we're just like about 3 megs of download speed, you know? And I wonder if there is a supervision on the part of the Universal Fund to see whether they're conforming to.
Excellent point, member. I can see that you are a man on the ground in your constituency. So the fact is that these things are tendered, and private entities do the installation and the maintenance. But the fact of the matter is that it's a responsibility of the USF to make sure that all of them are working at optimum at all times, because that's part of the agreement. And I do myself get complaints from time to time where members of the community are WhatsApping me to tell me that Wi-Fi hotspots are not working. And the fact is that the USF must and has a responsibility to do a sensitization so that persons can reach out to a hotline number or an email or WhatsApp, it doesn't matter, because the fact is we spend taxpayers' money significant sums of money, and they are paid for the service that they are providing, and therefore the communities must get it consistently and not ad hoc because of the fact that there's no oversight. The USF has oversight to make sure that all are working at all times at optimum. So I support you and I agree with you because I myself get the complaints. And when I pass them on, they are rectified in a matter of a day. So the fact is that it shouldn't get to that because it means that the problem is not significant. It's a matter of oversight and maintenance. So I agree with you 100%. Member Hilton?
Member Hilton?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Minister, just for clarification, you said JPS's 171 megawatt was a combination of wind and solar and battery?
That's the latest information we have? Yeah, that's the latest information.
What's this? Where is the wind installation? Where are they proposing that the wind installation?
We're not exactly sure of the location, but I understand it's somewhere in St. Elizabeth.
Okay.
Which is where most of the other facilities are.
Yeah. Just another clarification, the instrument landing system for Airport Authority, that is timed to respond to the expansion of the RESA and the runway at Norman Manley?
Mr. DJ, here my understanding is that it's a requirement for the Jamaica Civil Aviation.
No, it is. I'm asking, yeah, it is. I'm asking because the RESA should have started. Well, let me ask the question another way.
So
when will the RESA, when will they start construction of the RESA?
September, as I said. September, as I said earlier.
Oh, so
there will be a delay then.
Delay in the landing, in getting the instrument landing.
The landing is going through, has gone through procurement and gotten cabinet approval. So there is a lead time in terms of getting the equipment and the installation of the equipment. When is that?
No, but the acquisition and installation. So
the bottom line is that the work has to be done prior to the installation of the
I know. So that's what I'm asking. It starts in September, so there'll be a lag time between the ending of the work, or we have sufficient time to acquire.
Well, we have, based on the fact that it's going to September, then obviously we have lead time now that we can actually make sure that they go in sync. That once one is finished, other is installed.
You would think so. That's why I'm asking the specific question. Is that time? So you order and delivery for installation. Are those in sync, or there's a?
Okay. So the submission said 10 weeks for delivery. So it means that obviously we will be in a position for September.
What is for September? You start September.
What's the lead time of the work?
The delivery of the systems when? Is when?
Okay, so just for clarification, the timeline for the airport work is to start in September 24, and 3 years for completion.
Okay.
So it means that nothing can happen during that period of the 3 years. If it's finished before 3 years, obviously, then that is a thing. But they have a 3-year, window.
Okay, 3 years. Okay. All right, Minister, what's the government position on nuclear energy as a transitional fuel?
So remember, just to let you know that you would have heard the Prime Minister speak about nuclear and the exploration of nuclear. Let me just give you the latest. Obviously, based on the Prime Minister's pronouncement, the ministry is taking active steps to access nuclear energy for Jamaica, looking specifically at the use of small modular reactors. In this regard, the ministry is in ongoing discussions with the IAEA and foundational infrastructure for responsible use of small modular reactors technology with a view to developing Jamaica's roadmap, a critical part of which is public consultation, and you would understand why. And that has started, because I'm hearing more about it in the open space now and in discussions than we have ever heard before. In 2023, MSET participated in the pioneering Latin American and Caribbean Small Modular Reactor Conference, organized by the Foundational Infrastructure for Responsible Use of Small Modular Reactor Technology. This significant event fostered the beginning of Jamaica's bilateral partnership with FIRST, opening avenues for collaboration and knowledge exchange, leveraging FIRST's extensive expertise. MSET is set to engage in an initial meeting in April 24, anticipating substantial advancements in our understanding as to how to implement small modular reactor technology within an island electricity grid. The big problem, member, is the cost. And we have gotten several presentations, including Rolls-Royce and all of the top providers. And from a layman's point of view, the cost at this point is prohibitive. But I think that it's still something that we must proceed to come up with a policy position, and then, of course, at that point, the government will have to decide in terms of their fiscal arrangements as to how to move forward. But it is definitely something that we are pursuing, and we feel strongly that it's a possible alternative for the future. Maybe not the immediate future, but definitely for the future.
All right. Vernon Field, there's an allocation for Vernon Field. What is that about?
So Vernon Field is being handled by an enterprise team. It's not directly under MSET. I've had a discussion with the Prime Minister and given him our position from MSET, and I expect that a decision will be made whether or not it will remain under enterprise team or whether it will come to MSET, which I think is the rightful place for it. But since I came in May 2023, it has no, it's not under our purview.
So you don't know what this allocation to Airport Authority in this current budget is?
Land acquisition, I'm hearing. But as I said before, it's at this point it's ad hoc because Airports Authority is involved, which falls under me. But they're reporting to our enterprise team, but yet still budgetary allocations are being made under MSET. So I suspect that the time has come for a decision to be made, so that we can actually move ahead with Vernon Field with a final position in relation to what will Vernon Field do for the future in relation to aviation.
Finally, Minister, regularization of electricity. I have indicated to you that Riverton is a priority for myself and for JPS in regularizing. We have formed a team and we're working together to get this done. But the cost is prohibitive, and it requires not just JPS, but for government intervention. What is the government's position if we're going to have a long-term strategy for onboarding persons who are now not regular to bring them into compliance and to address what is a fundamental social issue?
You and I have had long discussions on this, and I remember putting you onto JPS and setting up, making sure. And I really want to say that I'm very disappointed that the former CEO has left, because I believe that we were getting very far with him, and I hope that whoever replaces him will have his outlook and his attitude. So the government is fully aware, because through the rural electrification program, which came back to my ministry also last year, I realized how important this is. And this is just not small communities. These are huge communities of thousands of people who don't have proper electricity and proper infrastructure. The government realized that when we were doing the REP, we weren't getting the full take-up because the householder was burdened with the rewiring. The rewiring cost $100,000 per house. So REP was doing everything, spending all this money, and it was just unaffordable. The government took a decision to include the 100,000. So now when we go through JSIF or REP, we, the government, pay that extra $100,000, and that's why we've been able to get so much houses connected, but it's a drop in the bucket. The government is fully aware that in order to deal with this holistically, the government is going to have to come to the table with big money. It can't be done with any initiative with JPS on their own. Government has a responsibility to work with the communities, with the member of parliaments, to make sure that we address this in a holistic way. We have had meetings at the level of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and JPS, and verbal commitments in terms of understanding what's going to be needed have been put at the highest level, both by Minister Clarke and the Prime Minister. Fiscal space is what it's going to require, and it won't be done in 1 year. But I believe that where we are today, that this is something now that we can make allocations, and substantial allocations, to be able to partner, to be able to give the persons who really want electricity and are willing to pay for it, but their circumstances of where they reside or their geographic locations, whether urban or rural, doesn't matter. But I can say as minister that I know and I can give the guarantee that the government is very aware that they're going to have to come to the party, and they're going to have to come with a big, big checkbook.
The sooner the better.
The sooner the better, and as I said, based on how the improvements of the fiscal situation is, I believe we are getting to that point where very soon we will be able to make an allocation in this same yellow book that would speak to substantial investment in getting and regularizing communities all throughout Jamaica. We should not be in a situation like this in 2024. Should not. I think that's a good way to end. Oh, no? Oh, my goodness. I spoke too much.
Thank you very much. Minister, just two very quick questions. One is a follow-up on the question asked by Member Guy.
Member Guy.
Yes. And it relates to the community access points. I know that we tend to do distribution across the board. So if it's one spot we're having is two, every MP gets X allocation. I'm wondering if you have taken into account the reports we got out of COVID around the greatest impact in terms of education and individuals not having access to technology, that they were in rural areas and in urban poor areas. And if in identifying how we now roll out those access points, if there is any intention. Well, I'm suggesting that more attention needs to be given to rural areas and urban poor areas to ensure that you have the infrastructure there so that they can make more out of education.
Member, I agree with you 100%. And the fact of the matter is that the rural areas are smaller populations. The urban, I don't want to call them poorer areas, but the urban areas that are less fortunate have vast populations. And I do believe that it should be skewed to make sure we give as many people connectivity rather than the areas. And it is something that I will take on board. And again, just to reiterate my earlier comments, that is how you can operate and act in a non-partisan way when you are a responsible minister. And I can say to you that what you have said to me would not necessarily benefit the party that I represent. But the fact of the matter is that the people who need it would be served. So I take your point 100%.
Thank you much for that.
How much you want? You talk to me off here.
Yes, I'll talk to you off here.
Oh, sorry.
The second question is really simply around the major corridors. Yes? With the issue of crime and violence and the safety of our citizens being paramount, places like Palisados, Spanish Town Road, major corridors are really not properly lit. We have a lot of accidents in some places. We also have crime taking place. It is a hazard, and I'm just wondering, what are the plans in that regard?
So just to indicate that street lights fall under the purview of the Ministry of Local Government and, of course, the National Works Agency, based on the fact that they're responsible for road construction. I can tell you, since becoming minister, that I have used my office and my influence to get street lights erected in a number of transport centers, including Parade, North and South Parade, which had like 13 lights that were either damaged or stolen. And if you go down there tonight, you see a completely different contrast just by virtue of street lights. So I agree with you 100%. As I said, I am the minister responsible for the JPS, but not necessarily the minister that's responsible for the allocation of streetlights. However, point well taken, and it doesn't take much. So it takes some collaboration, and I will push for it, but I have been doing it. And as I said before, JPS has responded to me, but it's not the normal process. But yes, I agree, especially on major thoroughfares.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thanks for affording me the opportunity to ask another question, but it's now to Minister. I'll use your last point that you spoke on, the Minister response for JPS, and the fact that government has 20% in JPS. The citizens of this country have been suffering at the hands of JPS, especially when there are outages. The standards set by the OUR are totally being violated. And the poor man in the country cannot apply for any rebate as it relates to their damages that they get as a result. Let's let it go. The time frame for JPS to restore electricity to these customers is woefully long. The chicken back that they have on the fridge in the shop spoil before JPS gets to repair them. Right, St. Mary I speak specifically of, because we have a situation there where the teams will not. For example, I had to wait 4 days before JPS was restored to my street. And I'm not unique in that respect. And it is something, if the government has a 20% stake in JPS, the government ought to protect its citizens. And it's something I want you as a minister to look into. I've heard you on the radio about it, but it is something that needs to be taken in hand. Second one, it's the Airports Authority of Jamaica. You indicated that there are going to be expansion of the runway with the RISA, that is the runway and safety area. And I suspect that it is going to go into the harbor in terms of it. What provisions are being made to ensure that the mangrove that is really being destroyed in the harbor is protected as a result of this expansion?
So I'll answer that one first. Obviously, anything that AAJ undertakes would require strict environmental adherence, and that I would expect they would have the necessary permits and licenses, and of course work closely with whoever their environmental consultant is, and of course the authority, which is NEPA. So I wouldn't expect that there would be anything, because I know that they would have to, especially based on the sensitivity of those areas, they would have to follow strict adherence to the guidelines and the permits that have been issued. As it relates to JPS, I am 100% as a rural MP in agreement with you, and I can tell you that the fundamental issue. JPS changed their methodology and centralized it to Kingston, taking it away from the various regions in terms of the responses. I am so disappointed that the CEO is no longer, because he understood it as well. And the fact is, the way in which they want the average Jamaican citizen to communicate an issue with the power service requires you to go online or go on your phone and make a report and get a reference number. And I am explaining to them that that doesn't work in rural Jamaica, either because of lack of service or not expertise to be able to do it. They have promised me to change it so that it is very simple. So when I call them, and I get at least 5 to 10 reports every week on my phone from every part of Jamaica. And when I report it, they respond. But I say that not everybody has my number. So it cannot be that the only way to get quick response is through a minister. The system is broken. Secondly, they don't know on their system when there are power outages in certain areas, which is absolutely unacceptable. So they rely on the citizens to report to them that they don't have power. And in doing that, you have to go through a highfalutin methodology to be able to log it and get a reference number to refer to. So you can be assured that this minister is not easing up. And I can say on record that I am not satisfied with the amount of interruptions of electricity across Jamaica on a daily basis. Not in 2024. It should not be happening. And I am only hoping that all the discussions that I had with the previous CEO and the board of directors will be carried through, because what obtains now, as you said before, not knowing that there's an outage and taking 4 days in rural Jamaica to restore an outage is very, very, very costly to the average citizen of this country. Whether you live in Norfolk, Cherry Gardens, Beverly Hills, or you live in Balcarres, or Buff Bay, or Hope Bay, everybody has their necessities. So I can say to you, member, you have my 100 on that, and I am not going to ease up until they put in an easy access system to report and respond to outages and guaranteed service. Thank you.
Member slowly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, I must ask you this question publicly. We have discussed it before, but for the benefit of my constituents, I want to publicly ask the question. There are 2 communities in my constituency, 7 corners, 2 communities, 7 corners and Leeds. Poles have been under the REP program, poles have been installed, lines have been drawn. The only thing that's left to be done is for the lines to be energized, and for quite a significant amount of time. Maybe going over a year and 2 years, nothing. My constituents are blaming me. Though we have had discussion, I really want you to, publicly address that matter, please.
So I will definitely have discussion with Minister Hutchinson. I know that a directive has been given that all of these outstanding, long-standing legacy projects have to be completed before any new allocation is used to put in new infrastructure. Because as you said, there's many communities across Jamaica, not only yours, that have unfinished business, which in this case is just to energize. So I will, if you can just send me back a reminder, I'll have a discussion with Minister Hutchinson and JPS and GSF to see who implemented and get it sorted. And if there's anybody else that has these problems, don't detain me now, just please send it to me, and I will give you a response through Minister Hutchinson with a timeline especially in light of the fact that we are in a new financial year, so there's funding that is now coming to the RAP program, which last year we only inherited what we received after the local government transferred back the leftover funds. So, well, the new budget starts in 12 years.
Thanks, Minister. We will now put members. Minister, in fact, I reviewed my notations. Postal was already approved in and under the Office of the Cabinet in the presentation therein. So we now put 56,000, Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, pages 1 through 6. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
69.
56.
6,900. 69,000.
Minister, I'm going to just double check something because. Yes? Hold on. So, did you raise the question with Minister? He would answer not in his capacity as Minister for the Postal Agency that was indicated earlier. You could have a discussion with him. The head was actually covered. Member Hilton. The head was actually covered under Office of the Prime Minister, and the budget was approved. Office of the Cabinet, Office of the Prime Minister, information. So it is head 15,039. So could you just take a look, go through and ask Minister for clarification or submit those questions?
Yes,
the budget was approved.
I have asked the member and given him undertaking that if he sends me those questions, I'll undertake to have them properly answered by the appropriate authority,
and Minister Dixon could
respond
take those
in
questions
detail to him in short order. Because
you.
I would be just winging it, which doesn't make sense. He wants proper information. So he has acceded to that.
$68,000 removed, 69,000, head 69,000, Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, pages 1 through 19. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. Head 69,000C for capital expenditure, pages 1 through 6. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Minister, to yourself? No. So what has caused some confusion in the notations and the preparation of these documents is the fact that the ministry head and name changed from last year, split in two, and therefore some of the sections herein do not apply anymore. And so we have correctly asked that the head be approved under 69,000, which is what is applicable, Minister. Thank you to you and your team.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you to all my colleagues.
Dr. Guy.
Minister Vaz, take your discussion outside, my dear Minister, along with my dear friend, Member Guy. Last for the evening. And members, please review your email for the revised schedule for tomorrow.
This is a quickie.
The intention, if all goes well, is that based on the trajectory for today, we should hopefully finish tomorrow. So please take a look at your revised schedules.
Chairman.
Thank you. Minister, we will now do Head 28,000, Ministry of Justice, Head 28,000C, through to 28,058, ending with the judiciary. Minister Chuck and his team from the Ministry of Justice.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And just the announcement of my team will be longer than my presentation. I introduce the PS, Grace and Stuart McFarlane, the PS, the Principal Finance Officer, Shelleen Rennie, Chief Technical Director, Kayla Sewell Mills, Director Management Accounts, Stacey Ann Berthel, the Principal Director, Social Justice Division, Jamie Ann Shivans, Executive Director, Legal Aid Counsel, Deanne Watson, Director, Court Administration Division, Mitzi Beaumont Daly, a judge from the Traffic Court who is now acting as a Director, Court Administration Division, Principal Finance Officer, CAD, and Ms. Anne-Marie Cummins, Administrator, Chief Executive Officer of the Administration General's Department, Stacey Ann Carty, and Mr. Patrick Wright, the Director of Finance, Attorney General's Department. Chairman and colleagues, the work of the Ministry of Justice over the past year has been nothing but successful. So I don't want to spend all my time detailing all the success stories of the Ministry of Justice, just to say that next year it will continue. In particular, we have gone across the country to let the people of Jamaica know that justice can be accessed. We have advertised a toll-free number, 888 Justice, and as I go on justice fairs across the island, I have urged the citizens of this country, please access justice, because as they say, there's no peace without justice, and we're hoping over the next 12 months that to really invite persons to utilize the services of the Ministry of Justice to avoid the conflicts, that resolve the disputes and the differences. What is very interesting, colleagues, and I want to repeat this across the country, where matters have been referred to restorative justice. And in fact, the records show that last year, during the course of last year, 1,792 matters were referred for restorative justice. 1,479, 83%. They were signed settled agreement where parties hug up one another afterwards and cried on people's shoulders. You know, and my major concern, I've said across it, why don't we have more referrals to RJ? We were very happy to, you know, I mean, when we're in Greenwich Town, I'm sure you can speak about the success. We are trying to, a lot of what is needed now is for us to go into the nooks and crannies and tell people, before you hire a contract killer, please go to victim services. If you are a victim of a criminal assault, talk with victim services, get counseling. If you can get the parties together, go to restorative justice before you start using violence to resolve your conflicts. And it is something, Chairman and colleagues, I will be appealing to every right-thinking Jamaicans. Let us see how our people within the homes, within the communities, can just resolve their conflicts. Here again, the Administrator General Department have asked them, and they're now doing it, to go across the island, beg people to make will, because nothing creates more problems than deadlift. so that we are encouraging people to write up their wills. The Administrator General Department will do it free for them. And in all sincerity, my only disappointment, colleagues, is that the services of the ministry has not been utilized enough. And that is where I'm begging people. Go to the justice centers. Call AAA Justice. No, I mean, well, we have one at Pembroke Hall, but the point about it, people are asking for more restorative justice centers or justice centers. The truth of the matter is that if they call AAA Justice, we send the RJ facilitator into the home or to the person, or even the victim service counselor to go to the person. All I'm really saying, and it will be the appeal, and we have been trying to do it with advertisement, get justice, just call AAA Justice, get information, and please utilize the service. We're working very closely with the Ministry of Education to really speak to parents, teachers, guidance counselors, and students as to how they can resolve conflicts. So I can say, colleagues, that I'm very happy with the alternative dispute matters, program, and we're really hoping it can be doubled, tripled, quintupled. And we have the funds. We have the funds where if you have mediation, if you have RJ, we pay the facilitators, we pay the mediators, we just want people to use the services. Okay? When it comes to legal aid, every lawyer, not one lawyer can say we owe them $1. In fact, soon after the gang trial, which was completed, we say, send in your bill, we pay everybody on time. And we have enough money to pay all the lawyers. No lawyer can say that they're owed. When it comes to judgment debts, we have paid up everybody. Every judgment debt. And we are begging now attorneys, settle your matters with the Attorney General's chambers so we can just get matters out of the courts. As you, the Chief Justice, have spoken, and I support him, the courts have been doing extremely well in that, especially in the parish courts, the matters are 90% of the matters are dealt with within 12 months. Traffic courts have been overburdened, and they're working in the evenings and on Saturdays, but we are hoping sometime this year, that the backlog in the traffic court will be eased and things will go back to normal. We urge traffic offenders, please pay your bill at TAJ, or if you fail to pay your bill, come to court, because if you don't come to court, we are now issuing electronic warrants. We are issuing them by the thousands now, and when you're stopped on the road, you may well be locked up and brought back to court. I can say generally that the ministry is doing its very best to be a good, strong service provider, and I would like to thank the staff. I think we are improving, but we will continue to improve. Those are my opening remarks, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Minister, I wanted to, commend the RJ program. Yes, in the Greenwich Town Division, we do have one, and that one is working well. I was wondering, though, given the impact it can make and how important it is, especially at the community level, whether or not by policy or by action, you would entertain a collaboration with the Ministry of Local Government in the same way you're doing it with the Ministry of Education, working through our local authorities, which you know they are closer to the ground, so that you can have greater referrals and a program with the local authorities pushing that on the ground.
Absolutely. And if I might say so, Member, we have entered into a memorandum of understanding with the schools, the Ministry of Education, with the churches, and in recent meetings I've said we need now to enter into MOU with the Jamaica Employers Federation to get their workers to go on the construction sites, so we can go on the construction site. And what you're saying in terms of the local authorities, I have no difficulty in approaching the various municipal councils and to really get some of our some of our speakers, trainers, to go and do a 2-hour session as to say how RJ works, to inform them about the various other facilities. As child diversion is coming on stream. It's where wayward children, but we work with the schools and the police and the courts on child diversion. Mediation, the bill is coming to Parliament soon. At the moment, we want to be able to say, you don't have to go to court for every simple matter. If you go to DRF, Dispute Resolution Foundation, and you have a dispute and both parties are willing to come together, we will pay the mediator. So we'll pay the mediator if the both parties can't afford it. And when the courts refer matters to mediation and parties can't afford it, we pay. But believe me, we have put enough money there and we have not utilized it. So I'm really saying the problem is people are not using these dispute resolution services. Yeah. So a lot of it, we need to just roll it out some more. And I agree with you, we will.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, the last point you raised about people not utilizing the services, I think part of it has to do, and I know you have been like a lone voice in the wilderness, but you need to have more public utterances by the ministry, more public relations as it relates to that. I want to commend the whole aspect of restorative justice, and in particular the ones that you have reached out to the school. But I don't know how, in terms of the arrangements and the MOU you have with the Ministry of Education, but the Parent Teachers Association are the prime target that ought to be in this particular aspect of your outreach there. And the other comment I want to make, Minister, is as it relates to the jury service. Jury. The fact is, Minister, first of all, part of the decline in getting jurors to serve is, one, yes, people have a fear of going to court, but outside of that, the stipend that is paid to the jurors, and the truth is that people are summoned to come to court, circuit courts, high court, and if they do not attend, they are fined. But they go and they are not called for jury duty, they waste it there and they don't even get a cent, right? No transportation, no lunch, no break, no nothing, right? And that is also one of the impediments for people moving forward or even willing to serve as part of their civic duty. What are the ministry's plans as it relates to that?
Let me answer the second one before the first. The second one, for the past 12 months, we have put a submission, which, as you know, all submissions go across then to the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance asks certain questions. But the proposal is to more than double what is paid now for those who serve, who are actually empaneled and who serve, you pay them per day. But the second one, very important, because the Chief Justice pointed out repeatedly, one of the reasons why, especially in the rural areas, to summon a juror, and he has to pay $1,000 to come to court, buy lunch, and then go back. It costs him, and he may be a farmer, he may be self-employed. It's very costly to him. So we have put in a cabinet submission, which we hope to take to cabinet soon, where once you're summoned to court and your name is called on the day, you should be reimbursed for that day. So that is something which is going to cabinet. The actual amount, cabinet will decide. But because why it has taken so long is that because the Ministry of Finance wanted to check how many jurors come in all the different parishes. But we're hoping within another few weeks that that will happen. Now, in relation to your first question, you're totally right. The Parents Teachers Association are the bodies that we would like to speak with. We are in close touch with the Ministry of Education, the security officer, and we have done, maybe, I don't know, 300-400 schools already. But apart from visiting the schools and conducting RJ sessions, we want to still go back and train some of the teachers and some of the directors, the parent-teachers body and the, what's the body called? The director, school director, the body, school council. Well, apart from, who are the bodies that we appoint to run the schools? The board. We want to train the board members too, so the board members know. I am a little disappointed, and I tell my staff regularly that when I go to the schools and I ask who know about RG, only a few hands go up. Very disappointing, because it is something that, but we're doing it. I don't know if you're aware that for the last 2-3 months, no, for this year, since January, or we started in December, we've been doing a series of radio programs. Since January, and we're continuing for a few more months. All the RJ officers across the island are being interviewed, and they're given success stories without revealing confidentiality. So that's the idea. And that will encourage more people, hopefully, to come to the centers and resolve their problem. But the answer is yes, we are going into the schools, we are working with the principals to roll out, and really and truly, it's a matter that is on the my full attention. I tell them I need to know that 200 sensitization sessions are done every month. So that's it. Thanks. And by the way, one before I forget, you remember I laid a green paper in Parliament, and we have circulated it. We'll soon change it to a white paper to be circulated. Thanks.
Member Hilton.
So, Minister, I agree that not just the justice system, but access, and easier access to justice is a critical part of what we must do if we hope to staunch some of the social issues. So we can't do enough in terms of education and disseminating information so there's awareness and easier access. So the centers, I believe, are vital. Mobile units are second best or third best option, because the truth is, what you want is, the moment someone needs access is not when you want to remind them, oh, but you can call a mobile. If they know there's a center nearby that they can go to, I think it will enhance the possibilities. Nevertheless, the question
at the moment, unfortunately, we're using the voters list.
And only those who vote you call?
No.
Okay.
I mean, once you're on the voters list, a sample they take. Many of the so-called upper class, middle class, no, a lot of them are moved. So when you go to serve summons, they're not there. No, the truth of the matter is that it's easier to serve.
The card won't let them in.
Right. Do you understand? So it's easier to serve in the inner city, in the rural areas, than to serve in apartment buildings. And you see the challenge? So the real question we ask is, what is a more appropriate way to serve summons so that, in a sense, we can get a wide cross-section? I must say that I will be coming to Parliament, maybe around the same time as we bring this information, to have a joint select committee to look at the Jury Act, to see how we can widen it, and probably to assess the Chief Justice's position that you should have bench trial, and let all views contend, and then Parliament can make a decision. So we hopefully, within the next 3 to 6 months, I'm hoping to come to Parliament, set up a joint select committee, and let everybody come and make their presentation in terms of the Jury Act, whether we should open it up wide, as you say it, that doctors and teachers can serve. I don't believe that lawyers should serve.
Well, that's a debate, but I think it has to be much more.
Yeah. We need to just open it up.
Yes.
Even restricting it to the age of 70, we could increase it to 75 because a lot of older persons are now retired and may have time to serve. So thank you, member.
It is with great sadness that I announce the end of today's session. We are finished for the day, and I hope everyone took a look. Let me put the pages. Ministry of Justice. So let's put head 28,000, pages 1 through 9. All in favor? Those against, the ayes have it. Capital, 28,000 C, pages 1 through 6. All in favor? Those against, the ayes have it. Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, 28,025, pages 1 through 4. Those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it. 28,030, Administrator General, pages 1 through 5. Those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it. Attorney General's Chambers, head 28,031, pages 1 through 4. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it. Finally, the Judiciary, 28,058. All in favor? Against? The ayes have it. That's pages 1 through 6. Have a good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Ministry of Justice.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, everyone.
Remember, everyone, take a look at your schedule for tomorrow, ministers, and for those members who are the spokespersons to do the same. We will follow the order established here, and if for any unforeseen reason there is any adjustment, we will notify quickly so that persons may make the necessary switch around. But we should have no adjustments. We're going to stick to the time and make every effort to finish. Thanks again. Have a good evening.